In this tutorial, we're going to look at some new concepts, and these concepts are going to discuss contact attributes. We're going to look at a lambda integration to cause an outbound dialer function in the Amazon Connect instance. So in this application, we'll give it a use case. Maybe you have a tech support queue that people call in after hours and they have the right secret sauce. They can access an emergency on-call technician. So what we've done here is to create a contact flow called enter notify number. We will prompt the call. We'll tell the caller that they're going to be prompted to put in some digits. We're going to ask them to we're going to alert them that they put in some digits. They'll have a chance to change that, correct it, add additional numbers. And then what we're going to do is go to this store customer input block. It's a part of your interaction here. You just grab one of these store customer input. And this is an opportunity here for us to take the input that the customer is going to enter. We're asking them to put in a 10-digit telephone number. And we're going to store that as a phone number. And once we get that information, we then want to um, set a contact attribute. And the contact attribute is where we're going to take the stored information. Now, if you want to use any information collected from the caller during the remainder of your flow, this is important. You have to save that as a contact attribute because if you have a flow that says please enter your ticket number followed by a please enter your phone number, the collect information will be overwritten when you generate the second request. So you have to save it. And the way you save it is with the set contact attribute. So we're going to take the phone number that they entered. We're going to recognize that the type, and if you in this drop down list, you'll see several different types. We're going to use contact attributes from the system. We will give it a name. This is a destination key. Could be anything we want. I'm calling it customer phone number. And where is the attribute coming from that we're going to associate with this destination key? Well, it came from stored customer input, the number that we just prompted them to enter. There are other places this could have come from, but we're selecting stored customer input. And this concept here is very important to remember because if we prompt them to enter something, we need to save that as an attribute so that we can have it later on if we need it elsewhere in the contact flow or if we're going to follow with another request of the customer. At that point, we're going to pass this information to a lambda function. Now, the lambda function was previously defined. I'll walk you through that. But what we want to do here is you can actually put in the ARN here of that function. But in this case, what we want to do is back here at the overview, we have an opportunity to go to contact flows, and you'll see here places where you can add in a function. So I created a function called emergency notification, and at this point I'm going to add it uh, and make it available to this contact instance. Now, back over here, when you drag from your integration palette here, you're going to drag this guy over. And here you're going to select that. Now you can actually just put in an ARN, but it's a good practice to go ahead and just add this to your instance so you can select it here. And at that point, we're going to say that the lambda function is expecting a variable called number. That number was user defined. Where did the user definition come from? Well, we created a contact attribute called customer phone number. So working backwards, the number that the caller entered was assigned to a contact attribute called customer phone number. We are now going to apply that to a destination key. It could have been the same thing, but my lambda function is looking for a number. So we're just saying set this equal to that. And at that point, we invoke the lambda function, and it's going to then come back and ask the caller if they want to enter any additional information. So that's the front end of the application. The back end of the application, if I go back here to go back to contact flows, we have one called emergency announcement. And what's going to happen is the outbound dialer is going to know that when it places the outbound call, it should connect to this contact flow, which is very simple here. It just says we're setting the voice. We're going to play an announcement to the caller that says, hello there, this is an emergency. You've been notified. Please hang up or press 1 to speak to a customer service team member. I just put that in there for giggles so you can see some other options. If they press 1, we transfer to the flow entitled customer service queue. Obviously, if this was after hours, this would go to the after hours call handler defined by the customer queue, transfer to customer queue flow. So that's the basic application. Let's take a look at Lambda. At this point, we want to go into services. This is not a tutorial on Lambda. I'm not going to teach you how to write a function right now. We'll do that someplace else. But we can create the function. So we have a dashboard here. We have our functions. I already created the function. I will make this available on request. Here's what the function looks like. We set up the function. This is the code for this function. We paste it in here. There are environmental variables. If you're a coder, you will understand this. You don't want to write. This function here is going to drive the dialer, the outbound dialer. We want to cause the contact center to make an outbound call, and that's what this function does. And some of the pieces of information that it needs are things like where is the instance? It's in US East 1. It's also going to need the instance ID, and it's going to need the contact flow ID, and it's also going to need the source telephone number that we should use for that. It also needs the customer phone number, and if you're following along closely, you realize that this is passed in the form of number. So, having said all of that, rather than have to redo this every time we bring up another contact center, you can go down here to environmental variables and enter key value pair. So here's the contact flow, here's the contact flow ID. Where did I get this? Well, if we go back over here, and under the emergency announcement, which is what we want this contact flow to be exercised by the dialer, you can see here the ARN. The ARN, the last 36 characters after this slash, are the ID of this contact flow. So I just copied that and pasted it in here. Likewise, the instance ID is right here. It's going to be the last 36 characters of the ARN. So this is the complete ARN, and this is the piece that they're interested in this function. So we go ahead and paste this in here. Also, what is the phone number? Now, if you recall, typically phone numbers are associated with contact flow. So we created a phone number here. It's the dialer handler, and this is the phone number that's going to be used when the out dialer does its magic. So coming back here, we've created our lambda function. We have created the environmental variables that the dialer needs. And we've also created, this is very important because you have to, if you think about it, Lambda is just another user in the system. And as a user, it needs permissions. Agents can't access Lambda functions. Um, and if we create a Lambda function that can access agents, or other services in Amazon, it needs to have those permissions. The permission here, you could create a role. The subject of IAM is a different subject. I just want you to understand you need to have a role assigned to your Lambda function, and that role needs some very specific. It needs some very specific features. In this case, it most definitely needs the policy called Amazon Connect Full Access, and that has these policies. One of the policies is CloudWatch, Directory Services, Fire Hoses. These are different policies that, or permissions and policies that you typically will need if you're going to do anything interesting with Amazon Connect uh, integrations and Lambda and things of that ilk. Let's take a look at Connect. We drill down on Connect. We can see that Connect has some very interesting individual policies. One of them here is Start Outbound Voice Connect. So this is a very specific policy that if you examine it, it's easy enough to read, but basically it gives the function permission to go activate the dialer. So to summarize, you create your Lambda function in the region. You create your function, you paste it in here, you address your variables. Uh, Typically, you'll use environmental variables, and you will also apply a role. I've also gone up here and created a little configure test events. There's usually a default one here. I created one just for purposes of testing so that if I hit my test button here, it actually initializes the Lambda function, and I can see that it's going to place a phone call. Uh, and I can see here that it has been successful. If there were errors, the errors would be reported here and you troubleshoot your function and life would go on. So that's a very, again, this is not a tutorial on Lambda. There's plenty of material out there. This is just to show you how it integrates with Amazon Connect and the pieces you need. So getting back to the contact flow, what I've done here, if you've been following this in sequence, you know that early on we set up something called a main greeting. So if I go to contact flows here, we set up a contact flow emergency announcement, and we set up a main greeting. What I did here was to add a option to the existing greeting, option number 3, which goes down here and it transfers to the emergency number. Now, it's a hidden option. Why is it hidden? Because in the announcement here, I don't mention anything about it. Okay, this just says press 1 for customer service, 2 for tech support. But I have a secret option here. Press 3, and you will be transferred to the emergency notification number. So that's the overall basic setup of that. It's going to be a little hard to demonstrate it, but it works. When you call in, it will prompt you for a number. We can give it a shot here and see. No, it's not going to, I'm not going to be able to record both sides, and that's what you're going to need to hear. But understand those are the pieces of the dialer, and the function is designed to initialize Amazon Connect to make an outbound phone call, and it's going to make that phone call from a number that we collected and input to the function. Now, we could modify this, and perhaps we're going to get these phone numbers from a list. So maybe this is, maybe the application's not emergency notification. Maybe, I don't know, uh, you know, we're setting up some kind of polling system. We're going to call 1,000 people and prompt them to press one for this candidate and two for that candidate, or press three never to bother us again. But the point I'm making is that you can input the number. We might create a DynamoDB database, and then this function would go to the database to pull the number. So there are all different types of options here. The intent of this tutorial was to show you the pieces and how they would work in an outbound dialer function. Hope you found this informative. Thanks for viewing.